U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called India a bit recalcitrant in ongoing trade negotiations Tuesday, marking the latest escalation in a trade standoff that has already prompted President Donald Trump to impose a punitive 50% tariff on Indian goods. Bessent said the Trump administration hopes to wrap up its trade talks by the end of October, describing that timeline as aspirational but achievable. His comments came days after Trump ruled out further negotiations until current tensions are resolved, following his announcement of an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports over New Delhi's continued purchase of Russian oil. The U.S. imposed a 25% baseline tariff on Indian goods effective August 7, then announced an additional 25% penalty on August 6 that takes effect August 27, bringing the total tariff burden to 50%. The White House cited India's direct or indirect imports of Russian oil as posing an unusual and extraordinary threat to U.S. national security. Trump warned of more secondary sanctions against countries trading with Russia, telling reporters it had only been 8 hours since the tariff announcement, and hinting that China could face similar penalties. India is Russia's second-largest oil customer after China, importing Russian crude based on what New Delhi describes as market factors and energy security needs for its 1.4 billion people. India's Ministry of External Affairs condemned the tariffs as unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable, noting that other countries, including the U.S. and Europe, continued trading with Russia. The tariffs will impact key Indian export sectors, including textiles, gems, automotive parts, and footwear, while electronics and pharmaceuticals remain exempt. The trade impasse centers on fundamental disagreements over agriculture and dairy market access. According to multiple reports, the U.S. demands India open its protected agricultural sectors, including allowing imports of genetically modified crops like corn and soybeans, as well as dairy products from animals fed meat-based feed. India has firmly refused these concessions, with officials drawing red lines around sectors employing over 80 million farmers and dairy producers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reinforced this stance, declaring that India will not compromise the interests of farmers, livestock holders, and fishermen, even if it means paying a heavy price. The cultural and religious dimensions prove particularly sensitive. India requires certification that imported dairy comes from animals not fed animal-derived products, a policy rooted in Hindu dietary principles that many Indians view as non-negotiable. The average Indian dairy farmer manages just 2 to 3 animals compared to hundreds in the U.S., making competition from subsidized American imports potentially devastating. Despite 5 rounds of negotiations since April, talks have repeatedly stalled over these agricultural issues. India has successfully excluded agriculture and dairy from recent trade agreements with the UK, Australia, and other partners, making U.S. demands for unprecedented market access particularly contentious. The standoff reflects broader tensions as the world's 2 largest democracies navigate competing economic priorities amid geopolitical pressures over the Ukraine conflict. Subscribe for more updates.